Christmas Eve is supposed to be peaceful. The city slows down, streets empty, lights glow behind windows. People gather indoors to eat, to laugh, to pretend for one night that the world is soft and kind. But this is Gotham. Here, Christmas doesn't bring warmth, it brings contrast. It draws a bright line between those inside the light and those still out in the cold. The snow looks pure from far away, but underneath are alleys, scars, and histories no one wants to see up close. Batman Arkham Origins, opened on Christmas Eve for a reason. It's not just a festive scheme on a superhero story. It's a psychological stage, a test, a mirror. Holidays pressure people to play roles: good son, loving partner, functional human being. In Gotham, those masks crack. Under the weight of ritual and nostalgia, the true self starts leaking through. This is a story about loneliness and trauma, about two men walking through the same frozen city, carrying similar existential wounds and choosing radically different ways to survive them. Two men who both feel like outsiders to normal life. One tries to protect that life from the shadows. The other tries to expose it as a joke. Tonight, we are not just talking about a hero and a villain. We are dissecting two damaged souls, Batman and the Joker, not as opposites, as mirrors. Two responses to suffering, two interpretations of fate, two answers to the same questions. What do you do with your pain when the world doesn't care? This is Psychology of Batman vs. Joker, Lessons from Arkham Origins, a Christmas psychoanalysis. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel for more inspirational insights from video game stories. For many people, Christmas isn't a time of comfort, it's a time of pressure. The music, ads, the movies insist you should feel happy, loved, and connected. If you already feel those things, the season amplifies them. If you don't, it amplifies that instead. Christmas becomes a spotlight pointing straight at what's missing. It doesn't create loneliness. It reveals it. It strips away distractions and pulls the wrapping paper off the soul. That's why so many Christmas stories revolve around orphans, exiles, and people on the brink. The holiday is a test of how you deal with absence, of love, of family, of identity. Bruce Wayne and the Joker are both defined by absence. Bruce lost his parents. Joker lost his sense of who he ever was. Bruce's loss has names, faces, and a date. Joker's loss is murky. Like a corrupted file he can't fully open anymore. Gotham on Christmas Eve is a visual metaphor for both of them. Cold, quiet, blanketed in deceptive beauty. Snow softens the edges of the city, but underneath is still Gotham, hard, dangerous, unforgiving. Just like people, it looks peaceful if you don't look too closely. Bruce stands on rooftops, close enough to see families in warm apartments, but separated by glass, brick, and his own choices. Joker lurks in the shadows, taking symbols of joy and twisting them into something broken and grotesque. As if to prove that warmth is temporary, they walk through the same city, under the same snow, on the same night, yet live in completely different psychological realities. One sees something worth protecting, the other sees something worth shattering. Bruce Wayne's trauma has a time, a place, and a frame. One alley, two gunshots, two bodies, a boy kneeling in the blood of his parents. This is the night everything else in his life orbits around. Psychologists call this a core traumatic event, a moment so intense and unresolved that the mind keeps circling back to it, trying to rework it, explain it, or undo it. Bruce is forever that boy in the alley, but instead of freezing there, he built something massive around that single moment. Here's the tragic core. Bruce doesn't just miss his parents, he blames himself for not being able to save them. That guilt mutates into a kind of hyper-responsibility. If I had been stronger, smarter, faster, maybe they would still be alive. The mind hates helplessness, so it rewrites the story. It was my fault. That feels awful, but it preserves the illusion of control. Then you add money, training, and an obsessive personality. He has the power to act, so in his mind, he must act. Doing nothing would feel like reliving the alley again and again. Batman isn't just a response to crime. Batman is Bruce's response to his own powerlessness. On the surface, Bruce Wayne the billionaire is a charming mask. Underneath, he is tightly wound, rigidly controlled, haunted. Batman is the mask that reveals his true self. Bruce Wayne is the one that hides it. Christmas sharpens everything. While others unwrap gifts, he unwraps memories. Every Christmas is a reminder of the life he might have had. The life of dinners, laughter, aging parents, maybe children of his own. Instead, he has the glow of the bad computer and the echo of his own footsteps in an empty manor. This is why Batman is extreme, why his no-kill rule is so uncompromising. On the surface, it's a moral choice. Underneath, it's a survival mechanism. If he kills, he becomes the kind of force that destroyed his family. If he crosses that line, the meaning he's built on top of his trauma collapses. The world goes back to random, senseless violence, and he becomes part of it. So his code is not just ethics, it's architecture, holding back collapse. Batman survives trauma through sublimation. He turns anger into vigilance, fear into preparation, grief into mission. He can't control what was done to him, but he can control what he does in response. And for Bruce Wayne, control is oxygen. Joker's trauma is a different kind of monster. Where Bruce's pain has a clear shape, Joker's is amorphous, a fog. His past is a patchwork of half-truths, conflicting stories, and broken images. Maybe he was a failed comedian. Maybe he had a normal job. Maybe there was one terrible day when everything went wrong. Or maybe the details don't matter anymore, because whatever he used to be has been swallowed by what he became. In Arkham Origins, that fakeness is the point. Joker isn't a man carefully guarding his backstory. He's a man who no longer has a stable story to tell. His before life feels distant, dreamlike, almost fictional. During his psychiatric evaluation with Dr. Harleen Quinzel, he describes memory as something cruel and invasive.
You of all people should know. There's nothing so cruel as memory. The pointy, biting little thunderbolts, unwanted party crashers screaming through your synapses. Inescapable, unrelenting, not at all friendly. You can't even escape into madness.
This is what trauma looks like when there is no coherent narrative to hold it. Memories become random attacks instead of chapters in a story. Then he says, you can't even escape into madness. For most people, losing your mind is the worst case scenario. For Joker, madness was supposed to be the escape, a place where logic dissolves and nothing matters enough to hurt. Where Batman uses memory as the foundation for purpose, Joker experiences memory as a weapon turned inward. His narrative broke, his sense of I shattered. So he stopped trying to be a coherent person and embraced becoming a symbol, a living joke, the punchline to a cosmic prank. That's his twisted form of power. In a world obsessed with identity, status, and reputation, he rejects all of it. If he is pure chaos, then nothing can be used against him. No shame, no future, no past. He can't lose what he's already set on fire. Everyone knows the Joker's laugh. It isn't joy, it isn't just mockery, it's anesthesia. Psychologically, humor is one of the most common defenses people use to cope with pain. Crack a joke, make light of it, and for a moment the weight lifts. Most people do this occasionally. Joker turns it into a way of life. He laughs not because the world is funny, but because laughing at the world hurts less than feeling it directly. Every giggle is a micro-escape from crushing awareness. Every cackle is a shield between him and despair. Look at his style of humor. Loud, over the top, relentless. He doesn't tell neat, clever jokes. He stages cruel slapstick with human lives. His comedy is designed to overwhelm not just his victims, but himself. If everything is ridiculous, nothing has to be taken seriously, including his own pain. Laughter becomes his drug and his weapon. It numbs him and unsettles everyone else. It allows him to keep a distance between his inner chaos and the outer world while forcing that chaos onto others. Set all this against Christmas. The city is covered in symbols of peace, love, family, and hope. Carols, lights, decorations. These are exactly the things Joker no longer believes in. He sees them as lies people tell themselves to avoid looking at how fragile and cruel life can be. So he attacks them. He vandalizes Christmas with violence and jokes. He turns the holiday into a stage where the truth, as he sees it, can burst through the pretty wrapping. If other people insist on pretending the world is kind, he'll make it impossible to ignore the ugliness underneath. Corrupting joy is how he proves to himself that his worldview is right. If he can ruin your happiness, then it couldn't have been real in the first place. The word association scene with Dr. Quinzel is one of the most revealing moments in Arkham Origins.
How about we try some word association?
That sounds delightful.
Acceptance.
Oh, now that's a little tried, isn't it?
Then Harleen says one word that cuts through Joker's performance. His tone changes. The jokes slow. The metaphors become less manic, more focused. It's as if a different part of him steps forward.
Fate.
You want to know something funny? I used to think of fate as evil. Predetermined, not by some higher power, no, but by the rules of human nature. Tonight, it's all changed.
What's changed?
Have you ever had the feeling that your entire life has been building towards this one moment?
Is that how you feel?
Well, now, yes. Now I realize that all the battles, the bad days, the brutalities, it was all the hand of fate at work.
So now you see fate differently?
Absolutely. Now I understand there are no chance encounters. It was all meant to be. Everything leading up to who I've met tonight.
Before this night, fate to Joker was just another word for cruelty. The idea that human beings are doomed to follow their worst instincts. No defined plan, no justice. Just the inevitable victory of selfishness and violence. In that worldview, trying to be good is pointless. Trying to be sane is pointless. The only honest response is to embrace the madness and turn it into a spectacle. But tonight, that's all changed. Tonight is the night he meets Batman. The night someone steps into his world and doesn't behave according to his script. The night someone risks their life, not for love or money, but for an idea. Joker says, after all the battles, the bad days, the brutalities, it was all the hand of fate at work. Suddenly, his life isn't just random suffering anymore. It feels as if it has been leading somewhere, to this one encounter with someone he sees as his opposite and equal. For most people, the realization that their pain might have meaning could be healing. For Joker, it's destabilizing. If his suffering led him here, then maybe it wasn't meaningless. And if it wasn't meaningless, then he isn't just a victim of the universe. He's responsible for what he does next. He cannot accept that fully. So instead of allowing fate to open a path to change, he twists it. He decides Batman is his destiny, not a way out of madness, but a perfect adversary who justifies going deeper into it. Fate becomes his excuse to lock himself into the world of Joker forever. Later, Joker says to Harleen, almost casually,
You're someone who's not afraid to let go and fall. Free falling, and I didn't pack a chute.
Beneath the wordplay is something stark. He's describing himself as someone already in the act of dying. His whole life, in his view, is a long drop with no intention of stopping. No parachute, no plan, no backup. Just surrender to gravity. That's suicidal thinking wrapped in metaphor. Not necessarily a one-time act, but a long-term posture toward existence. I'm already falling, and I don't care if I hit the ground. Then Batman grabs him. When Batman saves Joker from plummeting to his death, it's more than just a physical rescue. It's an interruption of a story Joker has been telling himself, that no one would or should stop him. He's the joke, the reject, the monster. If he disappears, the world keeps turning. But someone does stop him. Someone chooses to pull him back when letting go would be easier. In psychological terms, That kind of intervention doesn't automatically heal a person, but it destroys the idea that they are completely invisible or worthless. Being stopped proves that at least to one person, you matter enough to act for. Batman doesn't give a speech about hope. He doesn't bargain or moralize. He simply refuses to let Joker die on his terms. That action alone is louder than any words. For Joker, that's explosive. His fall was supposed to end everything. Batman turns it into a new beginning. Not the beginning of redemption, but the beginning of an obsession. Now Joker has proof that someone out there sees him as more than disposable. He cannot ignore that, so he turns it into fuel. After that night, Joker has a problem that becomes his entire personality. Batman breaks his philosophy just by existing. Up until then, Joker lived by a simple, brutal script. Life is meaningless. People are selfish. Nothing matters. Then this masked stranger shows up and consistently acts against that script. He risks his life for strangers, refuses to kill enemies, and even saves Joker himself from certain death. Joker can't shrug that off as random, so he rewrites his story. He decides Batman is his fate, his reflection, his one true counterpart in a world of fakes. In doing that, he makes Batman his new source of meaning. He tells Harleen that meeting this person is like finally finding someone he can actually relate to. It's the first time he feels less alone, not because someone understands his pain, but because someone else is as extreme as he is, just in the opposite direction. From that point on, Joker's life is no longer oriented around survival, money, status, or even pure chaos. It's oriented around Batman's attention. If Batman is proof that someone can look into the same darkness and choose a moral code instead of madness, then Joker's entire worldview is threatened. Rather than question himself, he makes it his mission to break Batman. Obsession becomes his shield against self-reflection. As long as he's trying to drag Batman down, he never has to ask if he could climb up. Now circle back to Christmas Eve. While most of Gotham is inside, Batman is outside, on rooftops, in alleys, following police chatter instead of carols. Snow gathers on his cape. His holiday lights are emergency flashes and muzzle flashes. Heroes are loneliest when everyone else is allowed to rest. Batman's loneliness is chosen, but that doesn't make it easy. He has decided that his comfort is negotiable, but Gotham's safety is not. If he relaxes, if he indulges, if he lets his guard down for even one night, someone might pay for that choice with their life. In his mind, joy is something other people get because he refuses it. That decision gives him a dark kind of strength, the power of being the one who carries the burden no one else can see. But it also traps him. He becomes addicted to responsibility, afraid that if he stops, the whole system will fall apart. Joker is just as alone, but refuses to be quiet about it. He doesn't retreat to a cave. He hijacks broadcasts, stages spectacles, blows things up. He weaponizes his loneliness, forcing the entire city to experience his chaos. If he has to feel empty, then no one gets to feel peacefully full. On Christmas Eve, both men are cut off from ordinary life. One stands apart to protect it. The other invades it to expose what he thinks is his hypocrisy. Same night, same snow, two very different ways of living with the same wound. Through a Jungian lens, Batman and Joker become two halves of the same psyche, locked in combat. Jung's shadow is everything about yourself you'd rather not admit. Aggression, fear, jealousy, selfishness, the desire to hurt or dominate. The shadow is not evil itself. It is raw psychological energy. The danger comes when you deny it and project it entirely onto others. Batman's shadow is his capacity for violence, cruelty, and totalitarian control. The part of him that wants to end crime by any means necessary, even if it means becoming judge and executioner. That shadow is why he has to cling so hard to his rules. They are fence built to contain something he knows is inside him. Joker's shadow is almost the opposite. Beneath his persona of chaos is a buried capacity for remorse, connection, and ordinary humanity. The part of him that remembers being just a man with fears and hopes before everything snapped. He has repressed that part so completely that any reminder of it feels like an attack. That's why he mocks sincerity and despises vulnerability in others. It threatens the wall he's built around his own buried self. Batman deals with his shadow by fighting it outside himself. He projects his darkness onto Gotham's criminals and wages war against them, trying to control the city in the same way he controls his impulses. Joker deals with his shadow by surrendering to it, then pretending that surrender is freedom. They are in fact each other's missing half. Batman looks at Joker and sees what he could become if he stopped pretending he was fundamentally different from the people he hunts. Joker looks at Batman and sees what he might have been if he had chosen discipline over despair. This is why they can't let each other go. Killing Joker would mean Batman accepts that lethal violence is sometimes necessary, which opens the door to becoming more like the criminals he despises. Letting Batman go would force Joker to admit that a different path was possible for someone just as damaged as him. Their conflict is not just personal rivalry, it's structural. It's the ego and the shadow. In a permanent stalemate, destroy one and the other loses its definition. So they circle each other endlessly, one trying to prove that order can hold, the other trying to prove that chaos always wins, both terrified, in their own way, of what it would mean if the other actually disappeared. Harleen Quinzel, future Harley Quinn, adds another layer to this psychological web. The danger of empathy without boundaries. She enters Arkham as a professional, a doctor, someone trained to listen, analyze, and help. On paper, she has power, the authority of her role, the structure of the institution behind her, the safety of the glass between her and the patient. But emotionally, she's vulnerable. People drawn to psychology often carry their own loneliness, their own hunger to understand and be understood. Harleen walks into Joker's cell on Christmas, a time when everyone is thinking about connection, ritual, and belonging. She wants to believe even the worst man in Gotham might have a wounded core she can reach. Joker doesn't seduce her with compliments or romance. He seduces her with recognition. He talks about feeling invisible in a crowd, about screaming and not being heard, about existing in a world where no one truly sees you. These are universal pains. Harleen recognizes herself in them. Slowly, the walls begin to blur. She stops seeing Joker as just a subject and starts seeing him as someone who gets her on a level her colleagues don't. Her empathy, unchecked by firm boundaries, becomes a doorway Joker can walk through. Instead of pulling him towards sanity, she gets pulled towards his madness. She doesn't just study his worldview, she begins to adopt it. Her professional mask cracks, and Joker offers her a new one, Harley Quinn, the woman who laughs with him instead of at him, who validates his chaos instead of challenging it. Her fall is a case study in how compassion can be weaponized by those who understand human weakness. It shows that wanting to fix someone isn't enough. Without self-awareness and limits, you risk becoming the very thing you set out to heal. Strip away the costumes, and Batman and Joker are two men responding to the same existential problem, the possibility that life is meaningless and cruel. Batman's response is defiance. If the universe doesn't hand out meaning, he will build his own. He creates a code and lives by it. With almost religious devotion, he turns his body into armor and his trauma into a mission. In a senseless world, he chooses to be a point of sense, a line that does not move, no matter how much force is applied. Joker's response is surrender disguised as liberation. If life is meaningless, then nothing matters. If nothing matters, then anything is allowed. He treats morality, identity, and sanity as bad jokes people tell themselves to feel safe. He becomes the living refutation of those illusions. Batman is structure facing chaos. Joker is chaos claiming to be honest about structure. Both have looked into the abyss. One built a bridge, the other jumped and decided falling was the only authentic act left. One sustains life at a great personal cost. The other destroys life to avoid personal responsibility. Most people won't live at either extreme, but the tension between them is inside everyone. The pull toward discipline and the pull toward giving up and calling it truth. The game's real genius is turning that inner conflict into an outer war in the snow. Arkham Origins isn't mainly about where Batman and Joker came from. It's about what they chose to become afterward. Two men, one night, same darkness, different answer. The question Arkham Origins leaves hanging in the snow isn't who's right, it's what do you do with your pain when no one is watching. Thank you for watching.